Hello everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video we'll be going through an unboxing of the Studio Series core class Terrorcon Freezer. And Freezer was released this year being 2023, in lead up to the upcoming movie Transformers Rise of the Beasts. So previously I had a quick squiz at the core class RC figure for Rise of the Beast, and I thought I'd quickly do a look at Freezer before I actually properly dedicate time into the mainline deluxes and voyages. So here I have the front of the box / packaging for Freezer. Now I don't know, maybe it's just me, I feel like he's channeling an inner frenzy from the first movie. Maybe it's just me, but it's the vibe I get. So that's the CGI art at the very top of the packaging tab, and then otherwise we can see Freezer pretty much through the plasticless window. And he will have a bit of an ad hoc background as well, but it will have holes in it, so it's not the best. Just another shot of his head on one side of the box, as well as the Terrorcon logo, and another shot of the CGI image. Back of the packaging, Freezer, so he will actually be a bit of a, I dare say, triple changer, in that he'll have his robot mode, he'll have what I dare say is some type of turret, and he can also be a quote-unquote weaponizer. So definitely very nice multi-purpose function. Does look very cool. Be interesting to see how it all works. So that's 12 steps. So I suspect the 12 steps is pretty much robot to turret, not necessarily the pseudo weaponizer weapon, but we'll see. So that was the packaging. With that being done, time to open up Freezer, have a better look at packaging and accessories it comes with, manual, things like that, and get a better feel for what he's like. And with everything out of the packaging, so we have a single Freezer, his manual, no accessories, which is a different change of pace. And as for the faux background, it's... Now I did say it was a fake background, so because of some of the extra holes used to secure Freezer within the packaging, yeah, if you're going to use it as a backdrop, do your best to make sure you can hide most of the holes. It's not terrible looking, but it's definitely not supposed to be a proper backdrop, so, which is a shame, because some of the background images do look interesting. I think that's the museum that they're at. But there you go. So that is the not a real backdrop being used as a backdrop. And not very well at that. Freezer, we will come back to you. Your manual. Well, not too bad. Everything actually seems to be able to fit on the screen. So the first part of the transformation is pretty much robot through to his turret. So that is the 12 steps that we saw earlier, which isn't too bad. Looks a little fiddly. Also just feels like half the turret's just basically moving arms into position and then leaving it at that. That's definitely not too bad. I'm not going to do a live filming of that. And then from the turret to what I can imagine is the quote-unquote weaponizer. So that's the first 2 steps. And then the, let's see, 3, 4, 5. Oh, how many modes does this dude have? It's like a weaponizer, but not a weaponizer. Oh, so the first one, which is the 5 steps, is pretty much to attach him as an accessory. I think that is onto the back of Scourge. So I think he basically becomes almost like a weapons platform on Scourge's back. And then the other 5 steps will basically transform him into what is equivalent to a weaponizer, just at a much larger scale, given that this is a core class. So there you go. So he's very multi-purpose. So that alone, I think, already gives him good value for money. So that is his manual, which covers 4 different steps of conversion. Now, as for Freezer, what do we have here? So before we get too carried away, front of Freezer, side of Freezer, the back. I'm pretty sure it's not a good idea to be holding all the arms from the other side, and then back to the front. In terms of a quick close-up, a very interesting looking individual. Now he actually does, believe it or not, actually stand on his own 2 feet. You just need to make sure that you can actually get those ball sockets in the ankles to be at the right spot. So it's definitely good that you can do that, because you look at his actual design and wonder, can he really actually stand on his own 2 feet unaided? Surprisingly, the answer is actually yes. Colors wise, it's got a very rustic type vibe, so probably not washes, dry brushes of maybe bronze or copper on, trying to figure out what type of his base color would be. Say a very dark grey with a more lighter grey, so it's probably a multi-tone grey with the effects of the bronzing applied as well. I will admit his head is fairly detailed. Each of his eyeballs have been done, as well as the painting of the teeth to make sure that they actually do look like individual teeth units, so that is very cool. So definitely from a design perspective, he's definitely interesting. I'm still not too sure about the arms, but it's okay. In terms of the back, he doesn't really have a lot of kibbling. It's all very flush, so that's always a nice welcome relief. Now, one thing I did notice, and could just be mine, could be the entire fleet of them, the limbs aren't super loose, but they do feel loose. Mine feels a bit loose, more so in the legs and certain arms, like this particular arm. I think the other ones are okay, but yeah, I don't know about the limb thing, so be mindful of that. And because there's 2 legs and 4 arms, that could become a bit of a possible sore point. Time will tell. I'm hoping it doesn't do anything weird and wonderful in the interim. In terms of articulation, so his head will be able to do some lefting and some righting. Can definitely go all the way up if you do that, but that's a bit extreme. So he's definitely got the head tilt. Does have some more forward motion with the head as well, if you want to actually like bring it forward. So I'd actually say Freezer, whilst he can't do a 3, well, he actually can do a 360 if you turn his head up. In the conventional sense, whilst he might not be able to do a 360, he surprisingly has some decent array of articulation within the head. Now, as for the arms, I think they can. So the arms will be able to do individual 360s. You just need to be mindful of what they can potentially collide with. But the arms can go pretty much all the way out, which is good. Obviously all the way to the front. So each arm is on its own ball socket. Goes pretty much to the back, which is very good. So upper arm is very nice. And then each arm will have a ball socket at the elbow joint as well. So you'll have nice 360 movement there because it is a ball socket. And then pretty much 90-degree elbow bend as well. So that isn't bad at all. Doesn't actually feel as clunky at this scale for some reason than it did RC, but maybe because the arms are just 2 pieces where RC's was about 3. Nothing in the waist, so don't think about that. Now, as for the legs, so can he do a full splits? Yes, he can, albeit it looks really weird. Legs can go all the way to the back, all the way to the front. I mean, that's just a ball socket, so you can pretty much do anything and everything with it. Won't be able to do a 360 with it, which is okay because it just starts banging into things, but it also did feel like every time I do some significant rotation of that sort, it does make the loose somewhat looser. this is not a real joint, so that is unfortunate, but he does have a bit of a joint. Well, not so much a joint, but he does have a ball socket at the very top, just underneath what could be like a bit of an E-band. So nice 360 there. It also does, I think, somewhat help with some of the movement. And then the feet are attached to a ball socket as well. So definitely, overall, not too bad in the actual feet department. Now, do be very careful, obviously. I think Frenzy's going to be, not Frenzy, Freezer. I'm getting my mini-con type things mixed up. I think there'll be a little bit of strategic work just to make sure that standing wise is fine, balance is fine, and balance is fine as well. So definitely keep that in mind. But overall, his robot mode isn't too bad. I feel he has more value in his robot mode than RC did. I could be biased, but it's my current feel. I think they've actually done him quite well, and to be honest, I don't necessarily think you would need a freezer at a larger scale. Not to say it would be bad, but I don't think it's critical. So now that we've looked at Freezer in his robot mode, I'm going to try and do the transformation to his turret. And then from his turret have a look at his mode where he would attach to the back of Scourge. And then lastly, when he is a weapon. Unfortunately, I do not have any nearby transformers next to me, so I will not be able to use the weapon part to full effect within this video. But there will be shorts in the future, so hopefully I'll remember to then. So let's give this transformation to a turret a shot. Pun actually not intended. Okay, now I'm definitely going to say he is probably mistransformed. This one was a little bit confusing with trying to get the arms to do the thing, and I will admit I haven't made it a point to look at a lot of stock imagery of Freezer prior to doing this unboxing, so there you go. If he's mistransformed, he's mistransformed. It was definitely not intentional. It's definitely unintentional. But yeah, it was a little bit confusing to get him into his turret mode, so I'm going to have to look that one up a bit more. But this is Freezer in his quote-unquote turret mode, from a side, potentially, the front, the other side, the rear, I think, from the top, and from the front. Now, the actual barrel of the weapon does look kind of cool, so that is always a good thing. But yes, it's an interesting mode. I think a lot of the transformation is actually pretty much just based in the getting the arm placement right, which I feel is horribly wrong, because the bit that was confusing me was how to connect the two arms together to make that leg tripod look. And I think I did it right, but as I said, it feels mistransformed. The legs, I actually don't know what they're supposed to be doing. I would have tidied the legs up a bit more, but I think he's supposed to be a bit more of a turret. So that would explain why they just jut out, just like that. From a look perspective, it definitely doesn't look too bad. The colors actually quite well. The colors work out quite well for the turret mode with some of that rustic look in the darker tones. So that is also very cool. But yes, that is the quote-unquote turret mode that, as I said, may or may not actually be actively mistransformed, but there you go. Definitely a nice little turret form, and potentially I think the arms could actually be quite sturdy once they've actually been done properly, and to be honest, maybe they have been, but we'll see. So turret mode done. Time to do the mode where he would be on the back of Scourge, and then after that will be the weapon mode. And now looking at the weird, if I'm on Scourge, this is what I would look like, and this would probably be infinitely easier if I actually did this with Scourge, so keep that in mind when I finally get to that point. So this was actually a bit easier to get into this mode, and without Scourge being here, I'm assuming these arms are actually correct. But what the legs actually do is actually tuck up a bit more, and one of the pairs of arms will actually have some tabbing into the side of the legs to just put them together. So that's actually not too bad. That tabbing actually seemed a lot more intuitive. So the manual definitely is not helping. So it looks like some type of rear weapon type of, I was going to say projector. I don't think that was the correct word. But yes, so Scourge basically has this little, I don't want to necessarily say weapon platform on his back. Could just be how more of a transportation mode, but it's not too bad. Colors we don't need to talk about. Colors haven't changed. It's definitely not a bad look to this little alternative configuration. You know, it's nice to add that extra playability to Scourge. But yes, I think it's one of those things best visualized with Scourge in his alt mode. So that is that. Time to look at the weapon mode, and then we can wrap things up with some thoughts. And the final mode, the weapon mode. So top of freezer, the side, the rear, the other side, the bottom with the actual handle also been pulled out, and then from the top again. So definitely not too bad. He does feel a bit oversized, but that'll be interesting to see once probably best used on Scourge. But although in saying that, I do have Battle Trap actively out of the box, so that is also one possibility as well. It's definitely not too bad looking. Now, because Freezer is a core class, going to my point, it does feel oversized. So until I've actually seen it being held by a leader, remains to be seen. But I will admit, from a transformation side, it is nice that to keep it relatively together, using a lot of this tabbing of the arms into, well, arms to arms and arms to leg. So that actually does help keep everything relatively together, which I think is pretty cool. So that is definitely a cool thing. So definitely not too bad looking there. In fact, I can pretty much hold it as a mini weapon. Now, Freezer, I'm actually going to keep you in that mode, but I will bring back your manual. So, final thoughts. This is really interesting because I actually wasn't expecting a 4-mode transformation. At best, I was expecting 3. Robot mode. It's very interesting and unique. It's like the Rise of the Beast version of Frenzy from the first few movies. The colors actually do look good. I like the darker colors, the bronzing and things like that. So color palette's very nice. Definitely basic playability there. That isn't too bad, and surprisingly there's some good amount of articulation that can actually be used. My probable only real criticism for the robot mode, joints and looseness. Not every joint was affected, which is good and fine, but I did notice it on a few. My biggest concern is obviously jointness strength in the legs, because if the legs have very weak joints, standing up will be challenging to say the least. And I did notice the hip joints did feel a bit on the loose side, so something to keep in mind. But overall, robot mode, definitely not too bad, quite enjoyable. His turret mode, transformation process I thought was my biggest nitpick, was just trying to understand the correct positioning of the arms. Manuals these days, I know they're doing the best they can, but sometimes they're just, I think anyway, a bit confusing with some of the connections of arms, legs and things like that. But as for the turret look, it definitely wasn't too bad if you can definitely figure out how it should be transformed. It's a very interesting look, but I think it's probably very situational. It's one of those, if you're needing to do a very interesting dynamic posed shot in a bit of a scenic type background, that would be one to use. But his main turret transformation, definitely not too bad. The look is pretty good, the transformation is just a little bit fiddly. The whatever wants to be called for the back of Scourge, it's a bit of a minor variation of his turret. probably just to help facilitate some storage capacity on Scourge. I'm not sure if it's just more of a storage transportation look or if it's actually supposed to be an active weapons platform. But it definitely wasn't too bad. Probably be a case of looking at it once again when I do an unboxing on Scourge. And the last mode, which is the one that we have here, the actual quote-unquote weaponizer, it's actually not too bad. Everything actually does tuck up quite nicely at the back, so it doesn't feel like it's a literal array and mess of arms and limbs and things like that, which it could have been. Similar to the previous mode, it's hard to say what this would be like without actually having a deluxe Voyager or a leader class figure to help with scaling. And that's okay. Overall, I'd have to say Freezer's actually a very good investment. If you can get away from the potential for loose joints, which to be honest you can get around, and you have a bit of a play with the transformation processes in between each mode, I'd say he has a lot of He has a lot of playability for the price point, which is a core class, being a core class. It doesn't save him and absolve him of everything. He does still feel a bit simplistic, with some of the transformation steps being a bit confusing in some regards, but I'd say Freezer would be a very good addition to the Terrorcon team for what he can actually do. He can be an independent figure, he can combine with some of the others. Definitely a lot of playability to be had at his price point. So if you haven't grabbed one, I would actually recommend grabbing one. Like, he actually does feel like a better Frenzy. Better in the sense that he's got more attributes and things like that, not so much a better Frenzy, at least up until we see the movie. Get a feel for what Freezer's demeanor and personality is like. So I'll probably wrap things up there with the unboxing and review of Studio Series Core Class Terrorcon Freezer. I've had fun, albeit confusing at some points. But yeah, I'm definitely quite interested to see what he's like when I do the shorts, and given that I've only got Battle Trap open, Battle Trap will have to demo at least one of the 2 transformation steps, which will be the weapon mode. The last one will just have to wait until I finally do Scourge, which shouldn't be too far, hopefully. We'll see. Thank you very much for watching this definitely oddly paced video, because I wasn't expecting multiple transformation processes. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account. Link is in the description below. Stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in a future video. See ya.